Hello and welcome to matchday 13 of Championship Predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm Craig Savage, and with me, as always, is Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap of matchday 12. And it was a very good weekend for both of us. 5 perfect scores in total, 3 for Daniel Cody, 2 for me. Daniel Cody's 3 perfect scores were Huddersfield versus Hull, Middlesbrough versus Peterborough, and Preston versus Derby in that 0-0 draw, which was very predictable, should be honest. My 2 perfect scores were Bristol City versus Bournemouth and Forest versus Blackpool, but there are more greens to Daniel Cody's side to mine. So Daniel Cody wins with 11 points compared to my 9. So let's get on with matchday 13. It is a midweek edition on Tuesday night. We start off with Bristol City versus Nottingham Forest. Bristol City, a 2-0 home defeat, and Nottingham Forest, another win. Good see Lewis Grabban back in the goals. Yeah,
well, it was the first thing I was going to mention, actually, Craig, is Lewis Grabban. The thing that's changed, you sort of alluded to it before the weekend, is why couldn't this happen under Houghton? But Grabban, if you look at his average position on the pitch, he's playing the width of the box now. He's playing on the shoulder of the last man, and he's scoring poachers goals again, which is a great sign for Forest for the rest of this season. I think it would be fair to say the Bristol City-Bournemouth game, rightly so, football ended up being secondary on that occasion. But despite that, Bristol City's awful home form continued, and it has got to be addressed at some point. Because let's be honest, it's the only thing stopping them getting into the playoffs at the minute. Away from home, they're very solid. So it's a team that haven't won at home, a team that are flying away from home, 10 points, the 4th best away record in the league. It's the sort of game that the Championship can trip you up on, but I'm going to go for the obvious to start. I'm going for a nice 3-1 Forest win. I think they're going to get goals on the counter.
I'm going to go for the odd goal in this one. 1-0 Nottingham Forest. Bristol City, once again, another defeat. They've obviously Bournemouth still unbeaten. They're looking really good. Forest starting getting that momentum now. Home fans are back on top, especially winning games at home is more pleasing. So I think Forest will win this one again. I'm going to go for the odd goal 1-0. Next up, Pride Park, it is Derby County versus Luton Town. Luton Town win at Millwall for the first time, seems like forever. Harry Cornick on fire. Sluga penalty save. Derby 0-0, typical.
Yeah, well, you said when I got the perfect score for Derby Preston that it was predictable, but actually it could have very easily been your score because Derby had a great penalty shout in that game as well, and then it could have been the perfect score for you. But the one thing we've got to say about Derby is they're rock solid at the back. 3 games without conceding now. They've still got the best defensive record in the Championship. Under pressure and under awful circumstances, they're doing as well as they possibly can. They deserve a huge amount of credit. As you mentioned, though, Luton were brilliant away from home. Fluent counter-attacking performances, which is what we've seen on our best days all season. Harry Cornick finishing superbly is something Luton fans have waited a long, long time to see. And nice to see Jordan Clark back in the team and setting them both up too. The only man I want to give a shout out to is Glenn Ray, because he's come back in for the last 3 games. He's not really been mentioned a huge amount early in the season and had been written off by a few fans, but he's made double the amount of successful interceptions than any other Luton player in those 3 games. And that's been crucial to us winning the ball back high up the pitch. So unsung hero for him. There's one thing I can bank on in this game. It's going to be low scoring, I'm afraid, even as a Luton fan. It's whether I go for another 0-0 or give Luton a 1-0 sneak victory. I think I'm going to do it. Heart over head. I don't often. 1-0 Luton.
I think Luton will win this one as well. I think, obviously, looking at the highlights, Luton, very, as you said, very solid. Bodies are on the line. You mentioned Glenn Ray with interceptions. Lockyer and Naismith and Bradley have been really solid. Since pretty much Bradley's come back into the team. Bree going forward, it's been superb. People have been moaning about Kyoto going online, but Bree's staked his claim there on the right-hand side. So, yeah, it's been really good from the Luton point of view. Very clinical, looks solid. Sluga with a penalty save, but people were writing Sluga off. People are writing Sluga off, but he's got the most clean sheets so far in the league this season with 6. So really pleased. Derby, on the other hand, another point. Obviously, they need to get the wins. They need to start picking up wins. It's all good keeping clean sheets and that, but they need to pick up wins. They're not scoring enough at the moment. But I think they are going to score, Derby, but I think Luton are going to get more. So I'm going to go 2-1 to the Hatters. Right, next up, it is Queen's Park Rangers versus Blackburn. QPR got battered in the derby against Fulham. Blackburn, once again, let a 2-goal lead slip at home.
Yeah, Blackburn were... There's a lot of worrying signs there. Is they very rarely just concede 1 goal. We saw it against Huddersfield. We saw it against Blackpool. We saw it against Luton, obviously, earlier in the season. When Blackburn concede 1, they often concede more. But the same normally goes for QPR too, because at 1-1, they had a real chance in that game. They got back on terms. They were looking an equal match for Fulham going forward. but such silly goals again. And it's the same old story with QPR, season in, season out, game in, game out. And you just can't predict them to keep a clean sheet. It's a sad situation because they've got such firepower, but I can't predict them to do it again here. I think it's going to be goals galore because these two teams would suggest it. I'm imagining Ben Brereton Diaz will be back in the starting lineup to add more firepower to Blackburn. I'm going to go for, there's not normally goals in midweek, so 2-1 instead of 3-2.
I think this would be a draw. I think QPR confidence probably would have been a bit knocked from that 4-1 defeat. Blackburn, their number 2 goal lead slipped, this time obviously to Coventry, and they did one against Luton last month or so. They get to good positions and they can't seem to hold on. Obviously, they were unlucky with the second goal. Obviously, a great shot on the outside of the box. It comes off the post and hits the keeper's back leg and spins in. Unlucky in that sort of point of view. But they can't get into those sort of situations again. They need to kill teams off. I'm going to go for a draw. I think 1-1 is probably, I think 1-1, I'm going to say. Right, next up, Bramall Lane is Sheffield United versus Millwall. Sheffield United, great comeback late on against Stoke. 2 goals in 3 minutes in the last 10 minutes of the game. Millwall booed off the pitch. It wasn't great for them.
No, but we've got to say it's very rare they lose a game at all, especially at home. I know there's a lot of draws, but they don't often concede 2. I think actually it was the first time they conceded 2 at home all season. Sheffield United, fantastic subs from the manager. We talked about him being given time to get the squad settled to his style of play, because before they were playing a very unique way under Chris Wilder and then under temporary charge afterwards. He made good substitutions. They turned the game around. And their first goal was a classic attacking Slavisa Jokanovic goal. It was passes, it was overlaps, it was little interchanges, and it was a fabulous goal in the end, a team goal. So Sheffield United starting to look good. After a couple of poor performances, they needed that one though. They're going to be up there towards the end of the season. They're going to get a win in this game. But Millwall are solid enough at the back. So I think it will just maybe be 1-0 Sheffield United.
Millwall obviously tried to be direct. I think Luton dealt with it pretty well. Sheffield United, obviously a great comeback. I think Sheffield United will win again, to be honest. I think 2-1, like they did on Saturday. Very nice to see Lise Musso score as well for Sheffield United. Very good player. So it's nice to see him back in the goals. Right, next up is Stoke versus Bournemouth. And before we start this game, let's give David Brooks wish him a speedy recovery. Obviously, with Hodgkin's lymphoma, we hope you get back onto the pitch very soon. Bournemouth unbeaten at home. Unbeaten in the league at the moment, Bournemouth. Stoke unbeaten at home. Some of these records are going to go, or do you see it both records staying together and be a draw?
I mean, it's the sensible prediction, isn't it? But I feel like I honestly don't think that's going to be the case. You've got to say fair play to Bournemouth because obviously the awful events off the pitch, it could have been a distraction, but they turned up, they played really well, and Scott Parker has done a miraculous job there so far. I think we both predicted them for the playoffs, but certainly not to be competing for the top 2, which it looks like they are going to be. The only thing I will say is even last year under Jason Tindall, I think they were the last team to lose a game in the Championship last year, and it went downhill very quickly. So I'm not going to get too overexcited yet. Stoke will be really disappointed with a collapse against Sheffield United, but as you say, at home, they've been a very different team. They're unbeaten. They've got 5 wins out of 6. They barely concede a goal. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for Stoke to nick it by 2-1. I think it's going to be a really even game, and either team could nick it, but I'm going to go for Stoke just to nick a winner.
I'm going to go opposite way. The reason why I'm going to go opposite way, obviously, Stoke will be bitterly disappointed. They lost it on Saturday against Sheffield United. Bournemouth have been pretty clinical, especially away from home. They've been pretty clinical, where they've had more chances at home, but away from home, they've been very clinical in their chances. I think they might want to spoil the party again for Stoke, and I'm going to go for 1-0 to Bournemouth. Next up at Craven Cottage, it is Fulham versus Cardiff City. We are literally recording it straight after Cardiff City's defeat to Swansea. 6 straight defeats now for Cardiff. Probably the worst team you want to play against with Fulham and Mitrovic up top.
Yeah, I think the problem, I said this against Reading, Cardiff, there were signs of recovery in the performance. They were by far the better team. When they went 1-0 down against Swansea today, particularly in the second half, when the second was knocking on the door, they collapsed a little bit. And in the end, Swansea had a whole host of clear-cut chances in the second half and arguably could have won by more towards the end. It's a real worrying sign. I know we mentioned off camera talking about the 5 at the back all being centre-halves for Cardiff naturally, which doesn't help, particularly against a dynamic team that play quick on the counter. And against Fulham, they've got another side that do that. The likes, well, it doesn't matter who plays, whether it's Harry Wilson, Cabano, Cavallero, whoever it is, Bobby Reed even. They've got pace that can run in behind. They're going to give Cardiff problems all day long. The only slight worry for Fulham is quite often when they've had a scintillating performance this season, it's been followed by a poor one. And Marco Silva, known for starting well at clubs, but maybe not for being consistent over time. Even that so, though, I don't think they can fail to win this game. Mitrovic is scoring one a game. Fulham are going to win. I think it'll be McCarthy's last game. I'm going to go for 3-0 to Fulham.
I'm going to go 2-0 Fulham. I have to say again, if don't concede early, I think Fulham scored early again on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Credit to obviously QPR getting back into the game, but then they collapsed straight after that. You don't really want to collapse against Fulham. Don't give them that opportunity to score. 27 goals this season is the most in the league so far. But they are there to be had as well. They've conceded 14. So Cardiff obviously has a couple of chances in the first half in the game against Swansea, but they just don't look clinical. And we remember when Mick McCarthy came in last season, and we thought, yeah, they're really solid at the back. They're scoring for fun. They're getting long throws in, looking brutal on the set pieces. They look toothless at the moment. It's really, really bad. And I can't see, I don't know where they're going to get the next win in, but it's championships for you. It can literally spin on its head. But I think Fulham will win this game. I'm going to go for 2-0. Right, next up, it is Huddersfield Town versus Birmingham. Huddersfield, another comfortable 2-0 win against Hull. Birmingham really disappointed me in that 1-0 defeat to West Brom.
Yeah, it was a better performance still than the Forest and QPR games before. And it was a bit of a nothing game, really, wasn't it? It was just settled on a moment of magic for West Brom. I don't feel either side really did enough to try and win that game. And Birmingham, perhaps after a run of defeats, looked happy to get the draw. And in the end, it didn't quite work out. Huddersfield, we've said it before, they're very good against the teams that are expected to be near the bottom, and they were comfortably beating Hull again. The set piece marking from Hull left a bit to be desired, but the first goal, classic little 1 yard tap in. You've got to love that from a centre half getting in there. Dwayne Holmes' strike was fantastic for the second goal as well. Really good finish from him, first of the season, I think. So Huddersfield at home to a side expected to finish in the bottom half again. A lot of these games seem like bankers on paper, but Birmingham have still got a decent record on the road. 7 points this season. Don't concede a huge amount away from home. I think I might have to sit on the fence with this one and bring out my first Championship's favourite scoreline, 1-1.
I'm going to go 1-0 to Huddersfield in this game. My worry for Birmingham is that they can't seem to score. They've only scored 10 goals this season, and 5 of them were in one game. And we know where that 5-goal game was. But they've lost their way in scoring. They've started to concede goals, obviously, with a little bit of quality in the goal, but 3 straight defeats now for Birmingham, 4 out of 5 in total. So it's not looking pretty. It's down in 19th. And we expect Lee Bowyer to do a bit better than probably where they are at the moment. So it's a bit disappointing that. Huddersfield, on the other hand, they're just quietly going about their business. Slowly just picking up points, picking up wins here, there, and everywhere. So really pleased on that. I'm going to go for Huddersfield to win again. I'm going to go for 1-0. Right, next up, it's pretty much a relegation battle, a 6-pointer, as you say. Hull City versus Peterborough United. Peterborough's away record is shocking. Hull's record at home is 1 win, really. I don't know where you're going to go with this.
No, I don't know either. And I was going to say the same as you. This is the first proper relegation 6-pointer of the season. You can tell it already from how they're doing. I will say, Peterborough, without deserving to win, and I think Darren Ferguson made a very clear point, which was poor decisions and poor technical errors at the wrong times. What I will say for Peterborough is they had a proper stonewall penalty. Dembele brought down by the keeper. I have no idea how it wasn't given. There were a few of them this weekend, bizarrely. Hull, if you can't defend set pieces, you're going to concede loads of goals in the Championship. We saw it when we had our first season up as Luton Town with Graham Jones in charge. The amount of goals we conceded from set pieces was just diabolical. And Hull scarily remind me of that. I genuinely have no idea which way this is going to go. Peterborough missing their goal scorers, of course. I think it's the last game of Clark Harris's ban, maybe the second from last. I'm losing track already. But without other strikers there, they've lost their firepower. But I still think this is the one away game this season they've got a chance to win and might even go in as favourites. I'm going to go for a classic. I'm going to go for 4-3 to Peterborough.
I'm not going to go that way. Quite obviously, I'm not going to go that way. 0-0. Sorry. 0-0. You can't have 3 to a 0-0. No, I honestly think 0-0. I got Hull have only scored 8 all season. Peterborough scored 12 all season. I don't see much in this game, I'm afraid. Right, next up, Riverside. It is Middlesbrough versus Barnsley. Middlesbrough scored 2 late on to beat Peterborough. Barnsley a 4th straight defeat. Were you saying about Marcus Shotman? We thought he would have gone probably before the international window. It's another defeat, and he didn't really look good either.
No, they haven't looked good for a long time, to be honest. Not really this season much. Reading could have won by more. Reading weren't great, by the way, but still won it pretty comfortably. Could have had a penalty again. Middlesbrough, though, they needed the win, and they had to wait till late. As I mentioned, they probably should have given away a penalty too. It was an okay performance, but it might be the one that can turn the tide. And it's back-to-back home wins now by 2-0 against very different opposition. And if you wanted another home game, probably this season, looking at the records, Preston, Barnsley and Peterborough are the 3 teams you want. They've got Barnsley at home. Barnsley, 1 goal in the last 5 games. I can't see where their next win's coming from. And I'm going to have to go for Middlesbrough to win. I think it might be by even more. I'm going to go by 3-0. I'm going for goals galore this midweek.
Yes, you are. Just from the last 2 games you just picked. I think it'll be 3-1. I think it'll be a late consolation. Barnsley have scored the second joint least with 7 with Derby. Only picked up 1 win all season. Barnsley. Everyone teams around them picked up 2 or 3. So yeah, I think Middlesbrough 3-1. Right, next up, Deep Dale. It is Preston versus Coventry. Preston 0-0. It's a let's see where they are. The 6th draw now for them, level with Millwall. And Derby, so with most draws, so that really didn't surprise me. Coventry come back from 2-0 behind. Credit's due. Comeback's a good comeback.
Absolutely. And first half, they were pretty poor again, which is something on the road that's got to be addressed. The second goal just before half-time, such a sloppy one to concede. But the second half, they were really good. The changes they made influenced the game. I know you could say perhaps they got lucky with the second goal, obviously hitting the post and the back of the keeper and going in. But equally, as I mentioned earlier, in my opinion, they definitely should have had a penalty just after and could have even gone on to win the game then. But defensively, away from home has been a little bit of a concern. However, Preston are largely toothless. Again, the biggest news for them was off the pitch at the weekend. Unfortunately, their owner passed away, but brilliant of them to get the prices down to a £5, donating all the money as well to his chosen charities. And over 18,000 fans there was great. Just such a shame they couldn't probably tempt some of them to stay for the next game by putting on some sort of performance. I know Coventry's away record isn't great. It's actually the 5th worst in the Championship this season now, but I think that's going to change on Wednesday night. I cannot see anything other than a Coventry win. I'm going to go just a classic 1-0 away from home. If they can cut out the sloppy errors at the back.
Yeah, I have to agree. If they cut out the sloppy errors in the back and don't concede early goals in their first half, I think Coventry will win this game. And I think they will. I think Coventry got a much more threatening attacking line than Preston obviously have. If they can exploit their defence, I think they've got a good chance. I think 2-1 probably a very good away win for Coventry, considering the last 2 away games were a 5-0 and a 2-2, which they had to come back from 2-0 down. So a good win for them. I think they'll be very pleased with that. Right, 2 games to go. The first one up, it is Swansea City versus West Bromwich Albion. Swansea, a fantastic 3-0 win in the derby against Cardiff. West Brom wasn't great, but they got their own victory in their derby 1-0 to Birmingham. Are you surprised with the long balls with West Brom? Because there was quite a lot of long balls in that game.
Not hugely, because Valerian Ismail made a huge focus of that last season when they got Daryl DK up front at Barnsley. The one thing I am perhaps surprised by is that we're not starting to see a little bit more cohesion at this stage of the season. Perhaps it will take a little bit longer, but when you've got a side like West Brom, you're going to have moments of individual quality, and that's what they relied on. But they got the result, and Ismail even alluded to that in his post-match press conference at this stage of the season. Swansea, really good performance against Cardiff, but as we've said for a couple of sides, it's hard to judge that performance because Cardiff have been so poor recently. They look good in the derby. They are just starting to click. A lot more goals in the last 6 games, albeit they've still drawn 2 blanks, one of those in the cup. And they've kept 3 clean sheets, which is a massive difference for them. I don't know if they can do that this time, but I do think they're going to give West Brom a scare. They're definitely going to have the lion's share of the ball. It's just whether West Brom press high enough to force those defensive errors, as we saw in sort of the first half against Luton, as we saw at times against Fulham. I think Swansea will be better. I'm going to go for second Championship favourite scoreline of the midweek.
I don't know about this one. This could be a potential banana skin in a way of I pick a silly scoreline and it goes the opposite way. No, Swansea were really good against Cardiff. Good strike by Patterson, especially in the first half. That was a very good strike off both posts. West Brom, I watched that game in its entirety. I was bored with that game against Birmingham. One little bit of quality from Grant wins in the game, and I think that's signs of a good team that they can win a game playing really badly and picking up 3 points. So I'm going to go 1-0 to West Brom. And the final game, it is Reading versus Blackpool. Reading a 1-0 win against Barnsley and very deserved. Blackpool a disappointing 2-1 defeat at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, it wasn't a great performance. They're missing Shane Lavery, who's obviously picked up an injury. Away from home, he's been crucial to the way they play. But they're still putting a decent fight against a side that have clearly got the new manager bouncing full swing. Reading, I mean, it's basically becoming the John Swift show, isn't it? Involved in over 2/3 of their goals with either the goal or assist. I think he's the 4th top scorer with 8 goals in the Championship now. And that from centre midfield is ridiculous, really. The amount of goals, the winners he scored in 1-0s or 2-1s is insane this season. And he's a large part of their record. Again, the experience of sort of Drinkwater I mentioned last time, Scott Dan as well, looking really solid for them now. And it's just starting to come together. So I think Reading are probably favourites going into this game. But I don't know if they'll stop Blackpool scoring because it's very rare that Blackpool, particularly away from home, aren't getting on the score sheet. I think this might be the day, though. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Reading. I think Blackpool might have a little poor run.
You had a crazy scoreline in the predictions. It's not really a crazy scoreline, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think this will probably be the game of the week. Don't know why. I'm picking one. I'm not happy with the rest of the fixtures. I think this will probably be the one.
There's not many that will.
No, I know. So that's why I'm going to say this one, the final one, will be the game. No, Reading have been really good at home. Obviously, John Swift scoring for fun, as you said. The good thing with Blackpool is even the defeat, they've been in the game. If they were like getting battered and like not really in the game, not many chances, I'll be a bit concerned. But they're getting these defeats and they're tight games in itself. And they're competing, which is very good for a promoted side. That's what you really want to do. So I've got no problems with Blackpool at the moment. Reading are pretty good lately. That's why I think this will be a 2-2 draw. And let's have a quick recap on what we just predicted for matchday 13. I'm just going to leave it as Hull 3, Peterborough 4 for Daniel Cody. Don't worry about mine, but I'm just going to solely focus on Hull versus Peterborough on Wednesday. I might watch that on the red button if it's on Sky. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And those are predictions for matchday 13. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there and give us your predictions for this midweek's action. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at HonestFootball3. We'll see you next time.